Welcome back to the Milestone Moment, where we interview top producing agents. We get to know their story and how they made it all happen in real estate. Today we have Nick Tatiano. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Awesome. So tell us about your history in real estate. Obviously, I know your background, but for our viewers, tell us how you kind of got into it and what brought you where you are today.
Well, it all started when I was 15 years old. I remember my first job was McDonald's, and it was very memorable because I had blue hair then.
Okay.
And I remember my visor had the blue hair stain. So that was my entry into the job world. And from there, I went into some warehouse work and always kind of knew, like, deep down inside there was something more to offer.
McDonald's is a big real estate company. So
yeah, exactly.
Real estate.
Their major is real estate. And so maybe that was the beginning of it all. But started there and then ended up doing a couple warehouse jobs, found some MLM companies. And I think everyone's done some MLM in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And what's funny is during those times of kind of pursuing greater things, the MLM world kind of taught me a lot about sales and how to deal with people. And so that was kind of a transition point in my life in the early on. But then I ended up dealing poker, which is kind of weird. I kind of fell into dealing poker for about 7 years of my life. So it was a long, long time. And the secret about poker dealers is they all want to become professional poker players.
Okay.
So I traveled to Mississippi to deal poker, and I dealt the World Series of Poker. And it was this big time of my life where I wanted to become the next best,
poker player. Wow.
Poker player.
Really?
When that failed, I had another transition point in my life where I gave my life to Christ. And so kind of some of my paradigms changed, my worldview changed, and I was like, I don't know if I can stay dealing poker. I don't know if my wife's going to marry a poker dealer. And I was kind of thinking about the future and kind of stumbled into working at Verizon.
Okay.
And kind of used my skills there to be in sales, kind of worked my way up to management, found my wife, started having kids. And then from there, I still had that inner feeling like there's something more.
Sure.
And I was kind of capped at Verizon. And I remember watching a YouTube video of a guy named Tyrone the Flip Man Taylor.
Okay.
And this was like, I don't know how many years ago, 15 years ago. And he was showing how to buy real estate via assignment.
Okay, yeah.
And he was like, you can buy a house for $10 and you just got to assign the property to them.
It's easy.
And I was like, this is the dream. This is it. And I, went all in, every webinar, bought courses, told my wife, we're leaving Verizon after 7 years.
Yeah.
I think I closed one transaction. We had like $8,000 in the bank, credit cards, and we're like, we're going for it.
Wow.
And then
that is courageous, having kids and making that challenging endeavor into something new. You were with Icon Group back then, is that right?
I was not a real estate agent then. So at that point, a friend of mine said, why don't you get your realtor's license? Because you're kind of practicing real estate without a license.
Okay.
And he's like, why don't you become legit?
Yeah.
And if owners need, more help with their properties, maybe you can list it. And I was like, why not? That makes sense.
Yeah.
What happened though is we didn't transact, and then I went broke. And then so I began to Uber Eats and DoorDash and kind of went down this kind of crazy path. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to kind of go full time.
Yeah.
But I always needed a job. So that kind of transitioned into Verizon, which was my last job before full-time real estate.
Yeah.
And I was there for about 7 years. So.
Okay. And then you were obviously with the Joseph Group doing some of the rental side of things and then transitioning into kind of full-time real estate. How was that transition between doing kind of the property management stuff into real estate? I mean, obviously you kind of had a background in all of it, but how did that transition go?
Well, I think, in the beginning of property management, I had the full-time job of leasing where I was helping do reports on homes and helping with showings. And so I wasn't able to really focus on real estate.
Yeah.
So my success was very low. I'd, averaged 2 homes a year, right? For 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And so it was just kind of on the back burner. We had some sales training, but really it was like, can I do 1 open house a month due to my schedule? So I didn't really have the opportunity to kind of progress and grow. So I was kind of stuck in this holding pattern working my 9 to 5, really, 8 to 7.
Right.
And then just trying to kind of make it. And so that's where I was at with property management. Yeah.
Now, I've seen you with clients. I think one of the things that I'm impressed with is just your ability to build relationships and then kind of foster that trust. Is that one of your secret sauces, or is there something else that you kind of think is really important to the success you're seeing in the current market?
I was always trained, people work with who they know, like, and trust. And I think that was just so ingrained in me. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite books was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Love it.
And so there's so many great nuggets in that book. Like the sweetest sound someone can hear is their name, right? And looking them in their eyes and shaking their hands and just making them feel like the most important person in the room. And so I think my innate ability is to become friends with someone.
Sure.
So then you get into that know, like, and trust.
Get on this decision-making team, and you're part of that big part.
And so that, I think, I've always been in that customer service. Poker was kind of customer service. Verizon was customer service.
Yeah.
Property management was customer service, but I was still always capped. Okay. So I knew, I kept having that, there's something more, something more, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and obviously you've got a big family. I'm sure that's a big part of your drive and your passion. Tell us a little about how you manage your time between family life, real estate. I mean, just all of it's got to be just constantly moving.
There is no management of my time. No.
Yeah. It's just a blur. Okay.
When I'm there, I try to be as present as possible. And my wife and I were talking recently because we have our 4th and final kid, and she's 5 months old, right?
Oh, she's beautiful.
She's fun. She's so fun, little Juliet. Yeah. But my wife's like, this is the most time you've had with any of the kids because you've always been working. Mm-hmm. And so the last 3 kids we've had, I've been 9 to 5 and working on weekends and just trying to make it. And so now that I've transitioned into full-time real estate, having that freedom to be home for hours at a time if needed. And that's one of the, benefits of real estate is you kind of make your own schedule, although you are sometimes working
a ton,
as in this industry, way more than
you can show
the 9 to 5.
8 p.m. as opposed to 2 o'clock. You're not, you have some time. Okay.
Yeah.
So the premise of this show, the milestone moment, you kind of touched on a few different moments in your intro. But was there one moment that you think defined you, and maybe it's still in the works? Like, what's your milestone moment?
I think a couple years into property management, when I wasn't that successful of a realtor, I kind of went back into wholesaling to maybe that was the way to, gain financial freedom and kind of get back into real estate. And so I remember the owner of our company kind of found out I was trying to wholesale, and he was like, "Hey, man. For one, our company, we don't do that." Okay. And so he kind of took me on this walk with a very good friend of mine, and I would say mentor, Lawton Corsi. Okay. And so we had this walk, and it was kind of like, where do you want to be in life in 5-10 years? And how are you going to get there? Yeah. And he kind of, just put me in my place, for lack of better words, and was like, if you want what you say you want, then you got to make some changes, and you got to kind of commit to the process of becoming this, realtor and serving people and learning your craft. Mm-hmm. And so after that walk, Lawton said, "Hey, man, I'd love to mentor you." And I think that was a big transition moment because I was trying to figure out real estate by myself. And you can either learn your craft through sweat equity and time, or you can pay, right? Or you can have a mentor that kind of fast tracks you. And I think I learned more in 1 year under the mentorship of Lawton than the last 3 or 4 years in real estate by myself. Okay. And I think having someone like that in my life really propelled me to be where I'm at today. And it's like, he would say things like, "Why don't you reach higher?" Or why did you do it that way? Right. Like just confronting the mindset. And I'm like, okay, that was kind of lazy. Yeah. Right. And then so I just really, pay respects to that. And I think if you can have a mentor in your specific sphere, then it's going to propel you a lot farther.
I love that. Yeah, Lawton is a fantastic agent. I've gotten to work with him for years. Yeah. So we're towards the end of 2025 into 2026. Is there anything that you're excited about that you've added to your business this year, or anything that you're doing next year, any transition stuff? Tell us about the next thing for Nick Tatiano.
Well, I think now that I've kind of learned the craft and kind of came out of under mentorship. I'm going to be transitioning brokerages.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So grateful for the opportunity and the tough conversation that I had right with the owner of our company, and was like, hey, if you're going to be successful, you have to commit to your craft. And so after this, last process of a year or two, I think it's time to spread my wings and fly and pursue my own path at EXP.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And just crazy global community, and just kind of build my own sphere, build my own business, help my clients in the way, how I've been trained, but kind of just create my own path, and very, very excited.
I love it. Yeah. Ian Joseph, your current owner, a good friend of mine, awesome guy.
Totally.
Obviously took it in stride and knows that people make life choices that are maybe the right path. And EXP has a really cool model with all the revenue shares and recruiting opportunities, and that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So Nick, obviously now with EXP, are you joining a team? Are you going to be your own agent with some support? Tell us what that might look like.
Yeah, just an agent with support, and there's a whole model there of recruiting and stuff. But I think just plugging into a good community that I have some people in mind, and building my own business and kind of seeing where it takes me.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. So anything that any passing words for either clients watching, maybe agents, newer agents, any words of advice for somebody that's currently in that struggle and obviously has seen some, your success, that it sounds like you've been through it, Uber Eats and obviously just grinding it out. What's some inspiration you can maybe pass on to a new agent?
I think just committing to your craft, no matter what it takes. I think if you're kind of trying to play, chase two rabbits, you don't even catch one, right? So it's if you just commit to your craft over time, one of my favorite books is not just How to Win Friends and Influence People, but The Slight Edge. Okay. And it's the principle of small things done over time create positive results. At the same time, small negative actions over time create negative results. So if you just commit to your craft, there's going to be a turning point where things start to click.
Getting a little bit better every day.
But you have to stay in the game. For realtors, I think 80 to 90% fail in their first 5 years, and so we're seeing a lot of turnover in the industry. But if you just stay the course, maybe you need to find a mentor, maybe you need to change brokerages, maybe you just need to do the things that you need to. Right. And there's going to be a turning point where you find that success. So.
Yeah, I've seen so many agents that they're into it, but they're one leg in, and they've kind of got a security, have a part-time job, they're doing Uber Eats, they're doing these things. It's like, they're burn the ships, there's no turning back, making it happen. Yeah. That's some good advice. Well, Nick, you've been a fantastic guest. We appreciate coming on the show. Thanks,
awesome.
man.
Thank you so much.
All right,